Welcome to Connect Church. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dwayne Hawksworth, and I'm the lead pastor here at Connect in Waco. Today we're continuing the series we're calling This Is What We Do. In our discussion today, we're talking about moving from a life of scarcity to a life of abundance. You just might be surprised to discover that a life of abundance is not about how much stuff you have. It's better than that. Before we get started, let me invite you to get connected with us here at Connect Church, and perhaps even prayerfully and financially support what we're doing. To connect with us, all you need to do is take your cell phone and text the words Connect Church to 94,000. That's the words Connect Church to 94,000. When you do, you receive a link to both connect with us and to give if you'd like. You can also go to our website at connectwaco.com to connect with us by mail. Our mailing address is Connect Church, P.O. Box 4317, Waco, Texas 76715. There'll be a screen at the end of our time together with this information too. Thank you again for joining us, for connecting with us, and for supporting what we're doing here at Connect Church in Waco. We're going to keep using the special song written and recorded by Life Church for this series. It's shared with us so we can share it with you, and has a powerful impact on the message series. We hope you enjoyed today's online celebration.
God so loved the world, He gave His only Son. Our debt of sin now paid in full. Oh, the cross has overcome. No matter what we face, no matter what the cost, with every single breath we take, we respond to your great love. We surrender in worship to the one who gave it all. With hands held open, we stand ready. It's what we do because of you. Open up our eyes, reveal your heart to us. Let us be known by what we do as we live for you alone. We surrender in worship to the one who gave it all. With hands held open, we stand ready. It's what we do because of you. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've done here. We're ready to respond to your love here. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've done here. We're ready to respond to your love here. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've done here. We're ready to respond to your love here. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've done here. We're ready to respond to your love here.
Let's get started today with a question. Now be honest with yourself. How many of you love stuff? Come on, who loves stuff? Be honest. I'm a recovering stuff addict, a stuffaholic. I love stuff. I like buying stuff. I get excited about things that I see on sale that I've never thought before that I needed. Anybody ever felt that way? One of the worst things that's ever happened to me, ever, is the 2-day free shipping to your door. It's so easy. Here in Waco, we have a distribution center. That means there are times when we get our stuff in one day or sometimes even the same day. It's so easy to buy stuff. Then there are times that I want to put something in my cart, just think about it. Do I need this? But to be honest with myself, I look at it for a minute, click the one-click purchase button, and it's mine. In the 66 books of the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, God talks about the topic of money and possessions over 2,000 times. 2,000. Is God obsessed with this? Well, God's focused on this because we are so obsessed with stuff. Watch toddlers play. It won't take long till you hear the word screamed, mine. The first glimpse for almost every human being of sin is the sin of selfishness. Many people never grow out of screaming, mine. God speaks about it in Scripture over 2,000 times, and God knows that the number one thing competing for your heart is money and stuff. Last week we discussed something I called poverty mindset. We could also call this the scarcity cycle. For those of you that weren't with us, I'd like to revisit it briefly. Here's how the scarcity cycle works. God supplies, we begin to consume what God supplies, and after a while, we start lacking because we've been consuming. After we've been lacking, we come to a place of fear and anxiety. What do we do with that fear? We medicate it by more consumption, and the cycle goes on and on. Don't miss this. The scarcity cycle starts in the mind, not the wallet. Let me say that again. The scarcity cycle starts in the mind, not the wallet. Solomon, perhaps the wisest person who ever lived, wrote something we should all consider. We can read it today in the Old Testament book of Proverbs, chapter 23 and verse 7. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Every choice you make, your lifestyle, your behavior patterns can all point back to the way you choose to think about your life and the world around you. I want to challenge you today to ask yourself, and more than that, ask God, God, am I thinking in the right way? Following a head injury and the resulting depression I experienced years ago, I would buy things and it made me feel good. I would even forget that I bought something and would then buy it again. I also developed a sweet tooth that I never had before. I love sweets. Serotonin is a chemical in the brain that makes us feel good. Then I learned that sugar is a false serotonin. The head injury must have caused a serotonin imbalance, and I craved sugar. This caused my blood glucose to soar and for me to gain weight. I had to change how I lived in order to live. Just like sugar is a false serotonin in the brain, so's the thrill of buying stuff. Make us feel good for a while, then the feel-good feeling wears off, and we must buy more stuff to make us feel good again. You don't have to have a head injury and face depression to feel the benefit of getting new stuff and of buying things. Some of you watching me today need to change how you live in order to live. In our discussion today, we're going to look at one of the greatest miracles Jesus performed. Through this miracle, we can learn how to change how we live and break out of the poverty mindset and the scarcity cycle. Even if you're not a church person or a Bible person, you may be familiar with the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Well, I need to give you a little bit of context because Jesus didn't really feed 5,000. He fed more like 15 to 20,000. Now, the Bible isn't wrong. We need to understand that in the time of Jesus, whenever they counted crowds, they would only count adult men. That's all they would count. So this number doesn't include women and children. That's not how we would do that today, but it was the way of their culture at that time. And Jesus always had crowds following him. And that's what we see as we read this story in the New Testament book we know as the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, starting with verse 34. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. We always see compassion as a motivating factor in Jesus. Even though he was tired and sought some rest and quiet time with his closest followers, his disciples, he taught and ministered to the huge crowd. And this is where what Jesus does starts to get very interesting. Late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to nearby farms and villages and buy something to eat." Now this sounds to me like the disciples were probably getting really tired and probably hungry too. Jesus has other plans for the crowd and for his disciples. Listen to verse 37. But Jesus said, "You feed them." This command shocks those close followers of Jesus. Listen to their response to Jesus. With what, they ask? We'd have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all these people. Does that sound like something you say? We don't have enough money? How much bread do you have? He asked. Go and find out. They came back and reported, we have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus always works with what you have, not with what you don't have. Mark doesn't give us this information, but John tells us where these 5 loaves and 2 fish come from. In the New Testament letter we know as the Gospel of John, chapter 6 and verse 9, we read, There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good is that with this huge crowd? Did you catch what the disciples said? What good is that with this huge crowd? Scarcity thinking asked the question, what can I afford? Someone operating at a mindset of scarcity is consumed with the thought of, what can I afford? An abundance thinker asks, what do I have? Because what I have, there is infinitely more where that came from. That's how abundance thinkers think. This is who we are at Connect Church, and this is what we do. Jesus viewed this through a completely different lens. He viewed it through the lens of abundance. That is simply the belief that there's more than enough because He is always more than enough. I think it's important that we don't read too quickly past this young boy and his part in what Jesus does. If we do, we miss an important truth for all of us. Obviously, since he was going out to see Jesus, hear his teachings, and spend the day with Jesus, this young boy's mother wanted to make sure her son had something to eat. So she apparently packed him a lunch. Now here's something that we can all learn from this young boy. The boy had enough for himself, but certainly not enough for this huge crowd. In human understanding, this boy could look at his lunch, then look at the crowd, and he would know it wasn't enough for anyone else. He could easily say, my lunch won't make a difference. I'd better keep it all for myself. Otherwise, I won't have enough, and it won't go far enough to feed everyone else. Now, please don't miss this. This boy could have kept his lunch, his loaves and fish. They were his. Jesus and his disciples weren't going to rip his lunch from his hands by force. He obviously had great love and faith in Jesus because he gives his entire lunch, everything he has, to Jesus. When we look at what we have, it may seem like it's only enough and maybe not even enough for what we need ourselves, but that's where this young boy can teach us all a great lesson. What we have is never enough in our hands, but it is more than enough in Jesus' hands. I want to say that again. What we have is never enough in our hands, but is more than enough in Jesus' hands. Because he already knows what he will do, because Jesus accepts this gift and a miracle happens. Then Jesus told the disciples to have the people sit down in groups on the green grass, so they sat down in groups of 50 or 100. Verse 41. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, looked up toward heaven, and blessed them. Then breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving the bread to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people. He also divided the fish for everyone to share. Jesus keeps giving out the bread and fish to his disciples to give to the people. Verse 42 says that they all ate as much as they wanted, and afterward the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. Each person didn't just get enough. They had seconds and thirds, as much as they wanted. Even more amazing, they had 12 baskets full of leftovers. A total of 5,000 men and their families were fed. Here's something I don't want you to miss. This young boy also ate as much as he wanted. He didn't go hungry either. Had he kept it all to himself, he would have had enough for himself. But by placing what he had in Jesus' hands, he still had all he wanted for himself, but he also became part of one of Jesus' greatest miracles and fed a multitude. The 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, the disciples' way of thinking, it's not enough. Jesus looks at those loaves and fish, and in his way of thinking, that's more than enough. They said, that is pitifully small. Jesus said, it's all I need. You have a choice to make with what you have. Just like the young boy, the question you need to answer is, do I trust Jesus with what I have, or do I keep what I have all to myself? Do I want to live selfishly, or do I want to live as a giver, or do I want to live generously? Do I want to live with just enough or with lack, or do I want to live with abundance, with more than enough? If you live with a mindset of fear, scarcity, there's not enough, I'm going to run out, your life will be marked by fear and anxiety. That's not God's purpose for you, but you have to put what you have in the hands of Jesus. We have the opportunity to participate with Jesus in miracles when we partner with Him with what we have and what He's doing. In our hands, what we have is never enough. In Jesus' hands, what we give always becomes more than enough. Here's the prayer I hope you will pray and begin to live out. God, everything that I have is yours. Use it in whatever way you want. Let me say that prayer again. God, everything I have is yours. Use it in whatever way you want.